friends, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing the book Contradictions tag. This is one that Mel Reeds just did. I saw it and I really loved the questions and the idea of it, so I thought I would do it myself. It's basically, this tag is just talking about your book opinions and books that you either love or hate that kind of are the opposite of how you normally feel about certain tropes or genres. So with that being said, let's get into it. So the first question is, I love this genre, but I didn't love this book. And for me, that's probably the first thing that comes to mind is The Right Swipe, because I love romance. I have a whole rainbow shelf dedicated to romance and a whole another shelf down here behind me dedicated to them. I really like reading them, especially contemporary romances, and The Right Swipe is exactly that, but it just didn't do it for me. And honestly, it has so many tropes that I love, the kind of, I don't want to say enemies because they're not really enemies, but it's a second chance romance. It's an almost kind of enemies to lovers romance. There's a lot of great scenes in it, but I just could not connect the love story. Like, in my mind, I could not make myself believe that these two are in love or going to be in love or supposed to be in love. So I didn't love it. And also, a lot of these books I talk about, I've unhauled, especially if I don't love them. So you'll see a lot of cover pictures pop up. But yeah, it's all about a girl, and I don't remember any of the characters' names, so sorry, who runs a successful dating app, and women love it. It's very popular, but she ends up going out on a date with a guy that she meets, who his aunt, I believe, runs a matchmaking service, and it's a very old school style matchmaking service. They go out, he ends up ghosting her for some reason, and then they end up meeting again at a conference, and so on and so forth. It's a romance, so you can figure out from there. But something about it just did not really throw me over the moon. So yeah, The Right Swipe is a genre I love, but a book I just didn't. Question number 2 is, I rarely read this genre, but I love this book. And for me, that is this book right here, and that is Cinder. I am not a sci-fi fan. I tend to not enjoy dystopians or sci-fis just because I've had really bad experiences with a lot of them, or I read them and just can't get into them. But this one I loved, and I think it's partially because it's a retelling, and also some of it is kind of applicable to current goings on, like plagues and discrimination between groups. In this one, we have Cinder, who is Cinderella, and she lives in New Beijing. She has a bionic leg. You can kind of see it here. These are the new covers, by the way. So if this doesn't look familiar, that is because the whole series got a big recover in the last like 2 years. But she is half, what do they call it? She's like cyborg. So she is seen as lesser than, and she ends up striking up a relationship with the prince, and they are basically trying to keep their kingdom from being overthrown from this otherworldly like species of people. So this really is not me at all, but as soon as I started listening to this on audio, I couldn't get over how much I enjoyed it. And I even got the second book in the series, Scarlet, and I'm very excited for it. So yeah, this one actually has turned me on a little bit to sci-fi. And the other one that I would say that I just finished, I borrowed it from the library. I'm not going to be purchasing it just because it is a big series and I don't see myself rereading it, but I did enjoy, is The Selection. This is a book that came out in 2012 and has been talked about so much, but it is all about a bachelor-esque competition for the prince's hand in marriage. 35 women are chosen from this dystopian country that basically comes about after China invades the US, and the US has to completely restructure itself, not only the US, but all of North America. And it becomes this other country whose name I cannot remember, but it's supposed to be this man's last name. It becomes a monarchy again. But I really didn't think I would enjoy it just based on it being a dystopian. I will say the world building wasn't super and the characters were okay, but as a guilty pleasure read, I really liked this book, and I'm going to read the second one in the series. Question number 3, I love this trope, but I did not love this book. So for me, that is The After Party. You have probably never heard of this book before in your life, because I never did until I saw it was on sale at Barnes and Noble. And I just picked it up because I think it was like a couple dollars and it was part of their sale and free shipping and all that. But The After Party is all about high society in Texas during the 50s and 60s, which is an era that I am very much obsessed with aesthetically. And it's all about these two girls who are born into a bit of high society, and they are not politicians' daughters, but that's kind of the sense you get. They go out to certain clubs, they're always dressed up. It's very socialite-esque, and one of them starts kind of going down the road that many Hollywood starlets did, where they were kind of tarnishing their reputations and also abusing drugs and alcohol, and the other becomes very concerned. She wants her friend to be more traditional like her, have the husband, have the baby, have the white picket fence, and just abide by Texas's societal rules at the time. And she basically becomes obsessed with her friend and trying to mold her into this person she wants her to be. However, her friend basically pushes back and says, I don't want to be that. I just want to live my life. Comes a bit, this is what part of the reason why I didn't like it. I thought it would be more of a thriller or kind of border on this rich people drama that we've been seeing a lot in books I've really been enjoying, these domestic thrillers. And it didn't give me either one. It didn't give me enough of each, I should say, to really say like, okay, this is a domestic thriller and I like it, or this is just a contemporary about friendship, or it's a historical fiction. You know, it kind of was straddling the fence on all of those things. So for me, I ended up getting rid of this book a little while ago. I just sent it to Half Price Books. But yeah, I'm a very big fan of that domestic thriller, kind of the friend who becomes obsessed with the other trope. And it just didn't end up working out with me with this book. So the next one is I hate this trope, but I love this book. For me, this one was really hard because if I even hear about a trope that I dislike in a book, I just will not pick it up. I won't get it from the library. I won't get it, you know, from a bargain bin, whatever, because why waste my time, kind of. But this one in particular, I kind of took a chance on, and that is The Loveliest chocolate shop in Paris. I read this one a while ago, but this is a book that has stuck with me for a really long time. It's Jenny Colgan, which Jenny Colgan writes a lot of books that look like they would be turned into a Hallmark movie. And this one is kind of like that, and I really don't love that genre. I guess a lot of people call it like women's fiction or chick lit, depending on how you look at it. But I don't think either of those, that's a whole nother conversation. But this one is all about Anna, who is working in a job that's just basically a dead-end job, and she reconnects with a professor of hers and ends up going to Paris and working in a chocolate shop, and basically has to fake it till she makes it. I'm not a big fan of books where it is an adult and they have to start all over, especially if there's some sort of romance involved, like that, you know, like I said, that kind of Hallmark movie trope. You know, the girl moves to this place to start her life over because of some sort of grand extenuating circumstance and then ends up falling in love and la-di-da-di-da. However, this book had so much more depth to it than that I cried reading this book. I mean, we find out that her professor, like the love of her life, is who this girl's going to be working with, and he gets sick and she's sick. And so they kind of have this reconnection, but then there's a lot of grief and just kind of this rediscovering yourself and finding out that, you know, maybe you've just sold yourself short for too long, and now that she's good at something, she should really like give it her all and not just assume she'll be bad at it just because of her past. Like certain things I just don't like. Like I said, Honey Girl's a really good example of a book that was kind of like this, with someone starting over or not really knowing where to go, but not holding themselves accountable for being in that position. This one had a lot more to it than that, but that's the trope I don't like. but this one I loved, if any of that rambling made any kind of sense. So the next two questions are about authors, and these ones are kind of hard for me to answer because I don't usually reread the same authors, or at least I didn't used to until recently, and there's only a handful of them that I read on a constant basis. So the first one is, I love this author, but I hated this book. And like, I can't think of a single one. My favorite authors are Stephanie Garber, Rin Chupko, Adrienne Young. Like, those three are my automatic pickup kind of people. As soon as I see they come out with a book, I want to get it. I'm a little behind on Rin Chupko, but I promise I will pick it up. This is like a really light, I wouldn't say I hated this book. I would just say it didn't meet my expectations. That is Kingdom Keepers 7 by Ridley Pearson. So I've read the whole Kingdom Keepers series, and I have the 2 spin-off novels that I haven't gotten to yet, and mostly because of this last book. But the 7th book, I felt like took too big of a jump in time between the 6th book and the 7th, just because we went from them kind of entering high school into almost graduating high school, and it made very little sense. There were big events that happened in the 6th book that were really out of character for the series, but made sense to the story. Hopefully that makes sense. Like, things that you wouldn't expect out of a book for kids that age. I would say they're like late middle school, early high school type books, or even, you know, if you like Disney, you'll like these books. But the last book just felt really disjointed and disconnected, especially for Ridley Pearson's writing and the way that that writing team kind of put together these books. And I think part of it is because they did not solely write these books. At the time that Kingdom Keepers came out, which was before I picked them up, they were very popular online, on Tumblr, and on different forums. So a lot of people were writing fan fictions about these books. And in turn, they kind of asked a lot of these really popular fan fiction authors to come forward and give them some little bits that they could use in the actual books, which they did. So throughout it, you are getting, I think they used like 50 different authors, writing styles, all in one book. And it was very obvious where the different authors picked up and left off. I mean, it was also marked in the book to give them credit. There were little asterisks. In doing so, you could tell, even without them, who wrote them, or that someone younger wrote them, or that it was pulled from a different story. So in turn, I just didn't end up liking the last book as much as the others. So I'm kind of interested to see if the spin-off will redeem itself, or if I just will be left generally unsatisfied by the ending of the series. So the next is the opposite of that you didn't like the author, but you loved this particular book. And I don't think I have one. Like, I am just looking here, and I really, that's a lie. I just found one. And I can't believe I didn't think of it. But I loved Go the Distance by Jen Kalanita. This is a Disney twisted tale, and all the other twisted tales by Jen Kalanita I have felt very neutral or displeased with. However, this is the Meg has to become a god book, and I thought this one was leaps and bounds better. So instead of her, basically the whole movie of Hercules has happened, and this would be like Hercules 2, like Meg's Adventure. I could see Disney making it now. It would have gone straight to DVD. It has to go and work with Phil in order to become a demigod herself so that she can stay with Hercules. Now, Hades really isn't in this book as much as the cover would allude to. He's in there, but not as much as you would think. However, this book was so fast-paced that I actually listened to it from the library in a day, as opposed to the other ones where they have felt really drawn out and the pacing has just been off, or I felt like there wasn't enough of a twist to the tale, like there wasn't enough original little dashes put in there. This book was completely original and different, and a storyline I had never even thought about pursuing with Hercules. So I would say that one. And I have not read any of Jen Kalanita's other stuff beyond the Twisted Tales series. I'm not even sure what her other books are, if she has any. But the other authors in this series, I know for a fact, have written outside of Disney and the Twisted Tales series. So maybe I will like her original stuff better. So lastly, we have cover questions. The first one being, I love this cover, but didn't like this book. And this is probably the easiest answer. That is the Hazelwood. I got the edition, I think it's just the regular edition. The Barnes & Noble one was black and gold, but I picked up the neon teal and blue one, and like neon green. Love the cover, thought it was beautiful, couldn't wait to read it. Hated the book. Nothing about this book stuck with me. I just wanted to finish it. Really up until the 85% mark, I really thought, okay, something will make me like this. Nope. Hated it left, right, and center. Oh, another one that I love the cover but didn't love the book that much, The Lantern's Ember. Such a cool cover, the skull and the fireflies, but this book tried to do too much in too little time. All the plot points that they explored in this book could have been broken into a trilogy and it would have been great, but shoving it into less than 300 pages, or no, less than 400 pages, sorry, was not the move with this book. Too much was going on. I've talked about this book before in my like most disappointing series. The last question is a cover that I don't like, but a book I love. And this is a really hard one to choose. I guess I would say maybe really scrape and scrounge for one. I would say maybe The Love Hypothesis, just because I think it's so crazy how few changes were made between the appearance of the characters and the actual fanfic, the Kylo Ren fanfiction. I don't want to give like a not great answer because I don't really have one. I would say all the books I have covers that at least to me make sense to the story and none that are like disturbing or weird. So that is it for my contradictions tag. I will leave down below the link to the original video, and I don't really have any like booktubing friends. All the people that I kind of interact with are on Instagram. So yeah, maybe I will see if any of them have any interest in doing this, and leave them down below if they do. But other than that, happy reading, and I will see you guys in the next one.